tonight will be.
Three. Your sentence. That's what he said. No, I know. Mr. Chair, unfortunately, it appears we will not be able to form a quorum for this meeting. We were assured that enough people would be here, but at least one of our members must have run into difficulties traveling back into the city. And I know you've waited for 20 minutes, and you're able to call the meeting as our vice chair. I would ask that you would also discuss the possibility or go ahead and make a decision to call the replacement meeting if we can arrange for advertising to replace the meeting with a meeting for September 28th. This was the official LPA hearing for some comp plan amendments, and we want to keep things moving along in the process since we have many deadlines over the course of the next year and a half in order to get our comp plan in on time.
Sure. Yeah, I think in light of the fact that we need to keep the momentum moving forward, we should reschedule instead of simply skipping to next month. I think we should reschedule until the 28th, assuming we can do that within the guidelines for advertising.
Yes, okay. And we will make sure that we have a quorum. I know that Commissioner Kerr may have to attend by way of Zoom, but if anybody is required to be out of town and wants to participate in that way, we are able to arrange for that.
Excellent. All right, well, I guess Jerry?
Mr. Chair, if you'd recognize me, I want to kind of go over the supplemental information that's been provided to you tonight so you have a better idea of what that is in the interim.
That'd be great, sure.
So in your packets, you have a draft ordinance and you have a draft plan. And what you've been given tonight in terms of replacements are a more complete plan that includes policy language that's been refined from what was in the draft that you have. It's not substantively different, but it's just revised somewhat. Also, at the end of the plan is the actual crosswalk of the policy language from the current plan as well as the initiatives from the Duwani plan. And those have been reorganized into a hierarchy. Your current plan is basically a product of the former Florida Administrative Code Rule 9J5, which the 2010 Community Planning Act repealed. So we have reorganized it now along the lines of the 2010 Community Planning Act. The reason for that is that the legislature, in their infinite wisdom, meets from time to time and decides to manipulate local government and require different things of you. If they say that they amend a different section of the statute and your comprehensive plan is not aligned along that, you have to try and figure out what it is you need to do to be in compliance. So we've tried to align all of the existing policies, objectives, and the goal in that criteria. And that crosswalk shows you exactly how those have been realigned, what the plan policy was in the first draft that you have, that's called prior, column of prior, and then what it was in the original plan or in the Duwani plan, and that's called origin. The other documents that you have are a supplement or a replacement actually for Section 4 of the ordinance, which takes then those goals, objectives, and policies and puts them into the ordinance for the level of service standards, so that we're basically amending the mobility element and the level of service standards in one ordinance. And the way that we crafted the title for advertisement allows that to happen because we had a reference to the mobility plan in there.
Okay.
So that then is a more robust document that we can present to the commission if you're comfortable with it, and we'll discuss that at the rescheduled meeting.
Okay.
The final thing that you have is the actual level of service standards, at least the draft that we have now. We're still in terms of verifying certain things with the county and internally in terms of making sure that we've got all the properties attributed to the right department, Public Works, which we're calling mobility for this purpose of the level of service standards and ultimately for the impact fees. Culture and Recreation, which is Parks and Rec, and then Public Safety, which is Fire, EMS, and the Sheriff. And so that's this. And it corresponds to the same policy that's in the draft ordinance, but now you've got some numbers that you can actually look at. And just, if I can go through that just briefly to give you some explanations, Mr. Chair, thank you. With mobility, what we've done is we've taken all of the acres of municipally owned property that are associated with either roads, parking, or the marina. Any sort of transportation or you can think of it as public works. And attributed those as the foundation for what we provide as a level of service to the community. So all of the improvements and all of the folks that are involved, the equipment that are associated with those parcels are considered improved municipal facilities and services. And that forms the numerator for what it is we provide in level of service. The denominator is the acreage. And that provides then a calculus that we can use to extrapolate an impact fee down the road. But these levels of service need to be in your comprehensive plan to form the basis for those fees. That's kind of all we've been working on to get to this point. Can
I ask you a question about that?
Yes, sir.
Something to clear up in my own head. Is this something we're calculating based on what as it currently exists?
This is a snapshot in time of what currently exists.
Okay, and then any new development,
this is the formula that new development would be using for an impact fee. Any new development that the city builds will be recalculated in that on an annual or biannual basis, whatever the policy is that the board decides on.
excellent, okay, thank you.
And, you have years where you grow a lot, it may be good to do an update. You have years where nothing happens, and that may be something that you don't have to add to your list of to-dos. But what the statute requires is the use of the most current local data and analysis to form the basis for the impact fees. So our recommendation, our recommendation is always update as frequently as you can, at least, well, at most annually, and you can stretch it out further, like I said. So that's mobility. Sanitary sewer, that's basically a county situation, so we'll go with their number. We're still making sure that we are verifying that. Solid waste, we have to work a little bit with Jamie on that to make sure we've got the right amount. Stormwater drainage, that's basically the same standard as it was before, reworded a little bit. We've updated the potable water standards based on the Water Management District and the county's most recent information. And then finally, the culture and recreation is a very similar calculation to mobility based on the acreage that we've attributed to culture and recreation, which would be this building, this entire cultural complex down to the Parks and Rec, the 9/11 Park, those types of facilities, the beaches, anything like that. Yes, sir.
Could you turn your microphone on? Thank you.
The solid waste is 4.9 per capita. Is that of all people at a certain time in the community or residents?
Not exactly sure, and that's...
You understand what I'm getting?
I do. I think that basically it's based on residential occupancy, and then there's a multiplier to deal with commercial properties, particularly those that have temporary housing, like motels, apartments. And I don't know when that was last updated. That's the conversation that we want to have with Public Works to make sure that we have the most recent information.
What that 4.9 means.
Right.
And what per capita means.
It's a per capita.
Of what?
Well, we'll get a breakdown for you on that. That's what he's waiting to go over in more detail with Public Works.
4.9 is the current standard, the current comprehensive plan, and we want to update it as part of this. And, we can update that as late as the transmittal hearing that the board has to do. So it's sort of a moving target, but we're trying to get you, the best information we can up until the point of having no more time.
And we will need to go over all this again, and we're not having an official meeting now, so we can't vote. So we are going to need to go over all these details and allow the other board members to participate too. So we just wanted to describe what the extra material was in your possession.
This is an informal conversation at the entertained by the chair.
Mr. Kerr?
And I'm
I know you don't want to run on here, but can you just give me an idea what the difference is between the improved municipal mobile facilities and services and the improved municipal
culture and recreation facilities? Yeah, so we've taken all of the property that's owned by the city, and we've either attributed to Public Works, which we're calling Mobility, or Parks and Rec, which we're calling Culture and Recreation. You know, like I said, this property, including the library, that's all considered Culture and Recreation. The parking lots that are not on the beach are considered Mobility. The marina is considered Mobility. The 9/11 Park is considered Culture and Recreation. So we've taken every piece of property, and that becomes the basis for the level of service. And all of those improvements become the calculus for what that level of service is worth. And then we,
Will they be listed in this document, or will that be? That'll be just a
they're in the
supplement?
appendix to the previous, level of service study. It's all the green, orange, red highlighted stuff in those spreadsheets. That's all the basis, and there's properties in there as well. But the equipment is, I think, green, everything's got a color and there's a code for it. That's all been determined. It may not be precise, but it's good enough, it's reasonable, and we're gonna use that moving forward. And then, you know, as we've got impact fees in place for a year or so, we'll go back. And the directors will have had a chance to actually see how this is working out, and Jay is gonna say, no, that should really be in Parks and Rec, and we'll make those adjustments. But, and again, that's gonna change over time. The city may acquire property, they may not, they may sell property, you know, things change, and each time we'll do an update. And the hope is that, you know, it's intuitive enough that staff can do the update. They don't have to call me. Happy to be called, but, you know, it's something that they can just keep up with. I'm guessing the first time around, you know, University of Florida may want to be involved, or they may want us involved just to make sure, but the idea is to make it something that staff can manage here internally. I'm trying to work myself out of a job.
Thank you.
Not true.
Okay.
So I think that wraps this up, our informal discussion. Thank you, Jerry, for, anyone else from the city have anything they want to clarify or bring forward for the moment?
No, we'll communicate with everybody about upcoming meeting schedules.
Very good. All right.
Thank you.
Good night, everyone.